because it comes
Yeah.
from sales, right? It was a sales tool
No, 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 no,
originally.
no, no,
Well,
no,
I've
not
just upset
originally.
you. I've just upset you.
Right? No,
I've
no. This
achieved
is this.
something.
Oh,
He's
now you're going
on
to
a
be
rampage today. Go on. Go.
no.
Modern
Yeah.
psychological therapy is very different to the original stuff. And for
Yes.
you, I mean, you've partly characterized it as solution focused and practical.
Yeah.
How do you understand the distinction between the two?
I mean, I would say, I mean, I would to your point. I think those lines are blurred, and so I think when sort of I don't know, what was it, the '60s, when hypnotherapy was started to be accepted as a potential intervention for these things. Before that, it was seen as quackery, and then so you have clinical hypnotherapy. So I think, and things like eye movement processes, EMDR, and related fields, bilateral stimulation. These things have come closer together. So I wouldn't say there's this distinction now. I mean, a lot of therapists are multidisciplinary anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do what you did, which is they trained in one area, but they learned a lot of other things. So I don't know that I could make the distinction, and I think there's much more of a crossover because there used to be kind of a battle between, I guess, solution focused and more talk based therapies, and I don't think that really exists now. Or maybe I'm
Yeah,
being
to
naive,
some
but that's not
extent. I
my
mean, to
experience.
some
Yeah.
extent, I go with that. To some extent, I don't. I mean, I
Right. Okay.
think the neuroscience, the approach has shown the importance of relational work
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
the development of the frontal lobes and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
that comes,
Yeah.
strange situation, mirror neurons, all of that are
Yeah.
really important discoveries. Um,
Absolutely.
I, I
Well.
tend to think that the evidence-based approach gave us these understandings, and that's where
Yeah.
I make the distinction. Whereas
Right.
prior to that, it wasn't really research-based. And even
Yes.
though the research might be pulling things back from that now and saying this is useful to
Here's
understand,
why it works. Yeah. Yeah.
but it was sort of voodoo doll territory, to be honest.
Yes. Yes.
Now it
Yeah.
isn't, right?
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean we don't have innovation and change, which is what you're
Mm,
alluding to. So
mm,
EMDR didn't really have an evidence base, but we could see that it worked, right?
mm.
And then the
Yeah.
evidence evolved because people
Yeah.
did research, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Where I would draw the line is if by now an approach hasn't got an evidence base, there's probably never going to be one, right? And we should really think about that. Where I draw the distinction really is this: it's
Yeah.
accountability of the practitioner to what they do. And that's
Sure.
really for me the issue is if something goes wrong, and
Yeah.
it can go wrong, where does the patient go and who do they go to hold that practitioner to account to say,
Yes.
did that practitioner act in a way that's reasonable and professional and safe, or did that practitioner behave in a way that put that person at risk? And then what do
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
about that, really? So
Yes.
it's really, I think, there that I'm sort of drawing the line,
Okay.
if you like,
I
if
think
I'm
that's a.
drawing
I
the line.
think. Yeah. I think that's a fair distinction to make. I mean,
I think it's perfectly legitimate. I don't know what you think, but I think it's perfectly legitimate that somebody would have a personal motivation to become a healer.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know many
Absolutely.
people, and myself included, who came into this field because I had needs as opposed to
Yes.
I was motivated by some desire to help other people. It was really about helping myself. What
Yes.
do you think
And
about that?
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think also if you've been through it, you are able to understand people's journey much better than if you're just, oh yeah, this will be good to do. You've been through it, you've been the journey, you also have experienced what works. Now it's important to not assume that just because it worked for you works for somebody else, and everyone's
Exactly.
different. But you get your own journey. It absolutely helps, and
And
it absolutely helps with the rapport with the
I think
client.
it's also for me personally, it's been professionally very important to understand how difficult change is
Yes.
and to
Yes.
be humbled. Sorry, my camera picks up hand
You
gestures.
liked it. That's good.
I don't know what it
That's good.
does. I don't know how to
No,
switch
that's
it off.
great. That's quite cool. I've never seen that before. A little bubble in the
It's
thumb. But
just an
yeah, yeah,
annoying thing that my camera does, but it
yeah.
forces me not to wave my hands around too much. But
Mm.
that notion that um for me, that understanding that personal change is a complicated process that takes time and is hard work,
Mm.
involves commitment, because that's my personal experience of it. Nothing has ever really come very easily.
Okay.
And that's the way it is, and that gives me a certain sense of humility, I think.
Mm.
But there is an issue about just because it works for me, it's definitely going to work for you. If it doesn't work for
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
you're not working hard enough.
Yes. Well, also, what works in the classroom doesn't always work on the streets, as the saying goes,
Absolutely.
as well. And
So
because it depends. But what
can you
stops a
name
lot
the
of
things that you learned along your journey? What were the courses that
so
you did? What were the
everything. So I
modalities
say I
you learned?
studied
Go on, I'm
various
sure there's
yeah, I
millions of them,
studied
but go
various
for it.
schools of various schools of clinical hypnotherapy, and I want to make the distinction between that and stage hypnosis because a
So
lot of
tell me the
people.
difference between the two.
So stage hypnosis is 3 to 1. You're a chicken. Hey, let's perform.
Okay.
Clinical hypnotherapy depends on the school, but it's not that dissimilar to forms of mindfulness, which is you're quietening the analytical mind so you can get the emotional mind, or the subconscious or unconscious. You can communicate with that part that doesn't work on logic, doesn't make sense, but is holding on to all your beliefs and thoughts and emotions and memories. So it's a way of getting to solutions quickly. It can be, but there's various different schools, and some are much more directive and some much more not sort of like you're going to feel better now. And if you have like the Ericksonian style of hypnosis, which is much more linguistic based, and it's much more how you guide someone into a more relaxed state. But again, it has a lot of fear. I mean, hypnotherapy comes with sort of two ideas. Either it's come on then fix me, and people think it's like a magic wand, or oh my god, you're going to have control over my brain. And neither is true. It's just about getting real control on the illusion of control that comes living in your head.
In
So
some
that's the
ways,
one
and
thing.
this is oversimplifying it, but I've always thought of clinical hypnotherapy as supporting people to get into deep states of relaxation around things that are just too terrifying to touch normally.
Absolutely, I think you've said, and a way of reliving it without reliving it as well. So a way of being disassociated,
getting support from another human being around stuff that you can't touch.
Exactly. And
so I think of it like if I think about some of the modern stuff around the use of psychedelics, for example. There seems to me a connection between psychedelic assisted psychotherapy and clinical hypnotherapy.
Absolutely. I think that's true. And again, there are you have different states. So you have, beta and theta and alpha states. So some states of hypnosis you are in all the time, just before you're walking home from work or whatever, you forgot the last 20 minutes of your journey, but you did the walk. That you're in a very light state of trance. So it depends on the different levels, sort of chemical, the ayahuasca, the psilocybin, is it called? Those would induce very deep states of trance. So there's that. As I say, I did cognitive behavioral therapy, which is pretty universal now. This is about understanding your beliefs and challenging them.
And I would say it's a core modality that people need.
Yes. I think it's very good. I studied EMDR, which is what we talked quite a lot about. That
eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing.
And I did a few other
cumbersome way of saying
yes. We get so many. That's why we initial everything. And I studied. I forgot. I'm going through the list now. And I studied sort of related fields of bilateral stimulation as well. So there's other things like havening and other techniques like that.
Did I detect some DBT terminology as well in there? Dialectical behaviour therapy? No, you don't.
Maybe, but I had possibly, but I haven't not formally studied it. Not
some distress tolerance language that you were using.
Oh, probably. Probably it all. I mean, that might be from the contemporary psychotherapy I studied as well.
There might be
because that drew on a lot of different fields sort of simultaneously, and various forms of mindfulness. I studied Neuro-Linguistic programming as well, NLP.
I thought I knew I could hear NLP in there somewhere.
Some terminology in there, which we could come on to there's good and bad in there in the sense that.
I think NLP is very effective, but I think the explanations of it are often junk.
That's oversimplified, and
that's my thing about it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I agree. And the thing is, but there are some very powerful tools. I think the problem with any quick course, though,
it's also here's an interesting thing about it because it comes from sales, right? It was a sales.
No.
Originally.
No,
I've just
not
upset you. I've just upset you.
Right? No.
This is something. He's
now you're going to
rampage now. Go on.
No,
go for it.
It was Richard Bandler, John Grinder, and I forget the third one. Modeled the best therapists at the time. So in the 70s, they studied Milton Erickson, Ginya Satir, and Fitz Perls, who was the creative Gestalt therapy, and they wanted to know what was the difference that made the difference in life for people, excellence. And it wasn't just what they said, it was what were they doing subconsciously, what was going
Yeah,
on
yeah,
behind the scenes.
absolutely.
And they developed and they did what's called modeling. Now, later, the application, because it didn't go down the traditional routes of therapy and testing, and I don't know why they avoided that. Although a lot of some of the techniques have now, come into
I'm
other
sure they
things.
have. Yeah, I'm sure they have.
But like the rewind process and things like that. Conditioning, obviously, a lot of the some of you said, I know you criticized some of the explanations. Some of the explanations are identical to how CBT behaviorism,
Yeah, yeah,
would
yeah,
explain
yeah,
things.
yeah.
That was how it started, but then people saw it. I was like, oh, this can be used for, the language can be used for sales and things like that. But no, originally it was a form of coaching or therapy.
Well, I was going to
So,
say something pleasant about sales.
go
I
on, you can say something pleasant.
in some ways,
Very
I think
defensive, yeah.
any type of personal change, we have to be
Yeah,
really good at selling that to people because it's hard
yeah.
work.
Oh,
And so
sure,
I
absolutely.
think I'm
Well,
not denigrating sales at all.
the ability to convince people that they are capable of change
Yeah,
is, you could argue, is a form of selling. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
But and I think this is, this is the problem with it, that it's so varied, and it's become, because it wasn't regulated in the same way, a bit more now. There's so many, when people say, oh, I studied NLP, it can mean so many different things. It
no.
could mean like you studied it for business and how to talk to
Yeah,
people
you
and how to
spent
have
a weekend and
communications.
did a bit of life coaching.
Yeah, exactly. Or it could mean you've learned, very deep skills, and a lot of
Which
therapists were
comes to the
NLP.
point
Yeah.
about being accountable,
Yes,
and that's
absolutely.
literally what happens in the psychotherapy field as well. It could mean all sorts of things. So there is a
Mm-hmm.
need to look at that and regulation and
Sure, sure.
registration so that the public have some sense of what they're buying. You can buy
Absolutely.
anything you want. If you've got the money, buy whatever you want.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
But it's finding what
that's
works. Yeah.
your choice. But I think those are broader issues.